So today we are going to be talking about the territory game changes that are going to be coming to New World as mentioned in their Forged in Eternum video, which they released just a short while ago here on YouTube, and some of you may have seen the clips of it on their Twitter. Now, they talked about some of the changes that they have already done, such as things like the taxing changes, where it's kind of that split revenue sharing model that came into fruition. And that has actually worked quite well on the Fresh Start servers, albeit some of the initial things were a little bit harder to pay for when you didn't have enough money to cover the initial costs of the upgrades, but I think that's kind of leveled out a little bit more as we've got further into that season. Now, what they also did is talk about some projections going forward about what they're adding in with some upcoming features like the leaderboards, and then also what they would like to add in the future. So I'm going to talk you through all of the most important points that they've mentioned today, as well as some things that I think us as a community would like to see added on top of this. If you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe down below to stay up to date with the latest and greatest, and let's jump into it. So firstly, they said with the leaderboard system that we know is coming within the next couple of months here to Eternum, we are going to see faction war boards in these. So these are going to be monthly and quarterly leaderboards, which is going to show how many days each faction has held each territory for, longest hold streak of a company for a particular territory, things like that, you know, that are going to really tell you who's gained the most influence, things like who's run the most PvP quests, all that kind of good stuff, and basically give a little bit more of an incentive to show that you can hold the territories if you want to do that and you're kind of a PvP orientated player or company. Now, they also spoke about the influence game going forward, deciding who gets to have the war, and one majorly important thing that they've discussed here is potential introduction. Now, none of this is set in stone, but it's stuff they've kind of put out a message to kind of get the feelers from the community, and that is timing windows. So it's going to be a schedule system, so that 2 or 3 territories at any given time would be available to push for the war. So essentially there'll be like active hotspots or active windows for being able to push each territory's influence. So if you're wanting to get a war, you might have to do Wednesday 6 till 9 PM is the open time zone to be able to push Windswood, for example. Now, obviously they didn't give us specifics on when this would be or what the timeframes would look like. I've given 3 hours as an example there, but this isn't all set in stone. But I do quite like the idea of having these influence push windows, as it does then give the defending companies a much better chance to defend, and actually gives them a reason to defend because it can only be for those 3 hours. Now, they didn't say whether this would be on a daily or a weekly rotation. My hope for this is that it would be on a weekly rotation, as that does give us a much better chance at actually getting people online to defend, because if it's once a week or twice a week you get it done and you are safe, then that is probably much more of an incentive than the current situation. Now, they also spoke about with this, what they want to do is add faction control points, so either make the forts much more influential in terms of you're actually pushing and fighting over the fort to get the war rather than just continuously running these quests. But they also stated that they may want to put in some brand new faction control points, and they were looking at how they can make these fort fights or control points, if they had several more of them, more pivotal for getting the war. So it could be just the fort, like I said. They could add additional ones, which will then give a multiplier for how many faction control points are held by the same faction in that kind of time frame of the push. And then you would get obviously more bonuses and things like that. And it does add an element of defense as well if you're holding 2 or 3 points down, defending those. And if you've got those points on defense, on lock, then you're pretty much safe from getting a war. I think that is quite a cool idea, but do let me know what your thoughts and feelings on that would be down below in the comments. Now, a couple of things that I think I have noticed in the comments, in the community, on the forums, and actually playing in-game that people have been saying in regards to this and in general about wars and faction pushes. First things first, we would need an increase to the rewards for open world PvP participation for this, because it would be a huge factor. And if it is something that's going to be encouraged more, like a certain window for this, it'd be great to get improved rewards, whether it's a buff to the PvP XP that's given out during these siege windows, if you will, or maybe some lootable items similar to a dog tag, so maybe something like a faction coloured heart gem, so a yellow heart gem, a green heart gem, or a purple heart gem, which every time you kill or get a kill assist on a player in open world PvP, whether it's in general or just during these siege windows, then it would give you this coloured heart gem, and you can then exchange that with your faction rep. Maybe that would be exchanged for gold or for umbral shards. Maybe it would be for PvP gear and then upgrades subsequently to that PvP gear in some way, whether it's a new system to the umbral shards or you just use the umbral shards to increase that gear level. You could have things like consumables, so we'd be looking at max tier stuff like the max tier gemstone dust or oak flesh balm there, maybe some potions. Or it could even be for craft mods specifically related to PvP perks. Any of these things would be kind of some ideas that I've come up with off the top of my head when writing out this video. So if you guys have got any suggestions of what you would like to see for increased loot, even if it is just specific to these influence push windows, then do drop that below in the comments as well. Now, we would obviously need more info, like I said, on whether these would be daily, twice weekly, or once weekly, or whatever it might be for these windows, but I do think that that would be really cool, providing that some territories don't have a terrible push window, like 3 till 5 PM, where most of the player base would be at work. That would be ideal to not have those situations, but I think obviously that is something AGS would hopefully think of before we release this system. Now, it would be cool for additional capture points to offer buffs for the influence push window only. So either this is to the entire faction, or Amazon Game Studio, when they were talking about it in their actual Forged in Eternum video, were stating that they wanted to make it more specific for certain companies in certain situations to be able to determine who rolls the war easier. So it could be stuff like the whole faction gets a 10% damage to open world PvP buff when you control a certain position, let's say the war camp, but if you are in the controlling company, so the specific company, not just the faction, that buff is increased to 15% damage, or maybe it's a damage reduction, or quicker regen, or faster cooldowns on the respawn. Something like that would be really, really cool. Again, any additional kind of ideas you guys have on that, do let me know in the comments. Now, finally, something else that I thought they could incorporate, particularly if they go down this multiple kind of faction control point route for these influence pushes, is shops, and similarly to the war, how you would get the specific influence currencies, like you get the war currency, that you could use in these shops to get things like consumables that would help you in that influence push. I think this could add another level of depth to it, make it more of almost like a mini game within the influence push system, and add a level of depth to it where the defenders will be able to buy defense type things, and any attacking factions and companies will be able to buy additional consumables to help them with that. Again, making it a little bit more fun and more like a mini game, as well as keeping it in line with the lore of the game and how it works in general. Like I said, we see this in Wars. We also see a similar version in Outpost Rush. So something along those lines I think would be cool if it was limited to that specific faction push only. So be interesting to see how they can work it in, but I think that would be cool. So there's a lot of stuff kind of going on here. A lot of things that I would like to see. Obviously the second half, but the first half is things they were speaking about. I will leave the original video linked in the description if you guys would like to go ahead and check it out for yourselves. And do let me know in the comments what you think to all of this stuff. What would you like to see changed? What would you like to see added going forward in terms of the territory influence and influence pushing in general? Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. If you have, do be sure to leave a like and a subscribe down below, and I'll catch you guys again very, very shortly on a brand new upload. So take care and peace.